All right, the property prequel. Be in the know before you buy. Crossy, we made it.
Here we are. It's been a journey, but we got here.
It's just like life. It is a journey, mate. We're here, and I'm really excited because, it's been on the cards. We've been talking about it for a while just to try and add some value, obviously, to the buyers. One pain point I've really noticed is obviously so many people out there wanting to buy property in the current market, especially in Australia and in Southeast Queensland in particular. But the main pain point I'm finding is so many people just need some guidance or some education around the pre-purchase, like before you buy. So it's pretty cool that we've been able to launch this. But one thing I was driving here, Crossy, I was just thinking we're on debut.
It's like before the first big game, the debut game.
Have we gone too big too early with our guests?
Well, time will tell, both physically and profile, I don't know, but it's a good one.
It's a good one. And I was thinking, look, we need to come out with a bang. I think I'm really thinking, and I noticed the guests who are coming on in a few weeks. The line's big. I'm really excited, but I feel we've gone big early to put a bit of credibility behind the property prequel.
Yep.
Today's guest, as you mentioned, Ryan James, former Gold Coast Titans captain, now at the Brisbane Broncos, but most of all, avid property man. So, Ryan, mate, thanks for being on debut with the property prequel.
No, thanks for having us, guys. As you know, love my property. Always been pretty interested in it from the second I started playing footy. So happy to get on here and chat to you guys about it.
It'll be good. I guess housekeeping first. We'll get the housekeeping out. Off to the Bronx.
Off to the Bronx.
Wow.
Yeah. Down at Canberra for the year. Played for Canberra. Had a couple of games at the Dogs, and once I moved the comp back up here and the family was home, had the talk with Sticky and was able to get out to the beautiful home out in Benogan.
Yeah, nice. And just on that, Crossy might have something on this as well. Is, mate, what's that like? Sort of, I guess, coming back home, because I know when you used to play footy as well, Crossy. Like obviously, when I played, I was always near home. Going to Canberra, away from your comfort zone. Now being back, how was that? I guess experience being away, like whole different environment.
Yeah, I've always I played majority of my career on the Gold Coast and was lucky enough to continue my career down in Canberra with the back-to-back knee recos. But it was probably the best thing that we did as a family to move away, get away from the Gold Coast. It gives you a lot of appreciation for how good the Gold Coast actually is and how good home is. And we only spent 6 months down there before the comp got moved back up here due to COVID. And luckily enough, I was able to secure a contract up here and move back up. But just to move the family away, experience something different, was definitely a good move for the family.
I guess I was just thinking about that too, exactly as Sram said. Canberra's it's a different place, isn't it? Obviously climate-wise, but also, did you find much of a difference in lifestyle? Obviously here you're used to that coastal lifestyle, flat walk to beach, cafes, etc. Is Canberra similar, mate, or is it different?
No, yeah, it's totally different. It's probably 2 hours to your closest beach. A lot of government jobs down there, so everyone's sort of in and out of there. So there is residents there, but a lot of people are fly in, fly out, or drive in, drive out, and a lot of the occupancy in like the sort of real estate is actually really high in the rentals and buying prices because they're all sort of government funded jobs, and everyone sort of comes there for that. And I was scratching my head coming from the Gold Coast where you could buy, a nice property at the time for 1.5, and you go down there and you can only probably get a townhouse for that. So yeah, it's a weird old market down there, but Gold Coast is the place where you want to be.
Yeah, it's just on that real estate bit. I heard Canberra, the market down there is wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so weird. Like your rentals are nearly $1,000 a week anywhere close to town, and then the property prices sort of reflect that if you work on the 10%. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I enjoyed my time down there, but I wouldn't necessarily take my money out and spend it down there.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because in property, particularly in investing, you talk about investing in areas for diversification and industry that's got multiple sort of drivers. Like Canberra's that one area where, if you look at it like from an investor's point of view, it's a bit of a one-trick pony, but that trick and that pony is a pretty bloody good one, isn't it? Because it's government and it's solid and it's going nowhere.
Good incomes as well.
100%. They reckon during the GFC it was the only place not to really take a hit. Everyone sort of had steady jobs and income, and their property prices sort of just stayed and plateaued. And then they just went up again once everything sort of left.
And lastly on the footy piece, so Brisbane Broncos, a bit of a glamour club. Mate, I grew up in Brisbane. I was like, man, I wish the Broncos would have a go at me. Like, I want to play at Suncorp. What was the reason for the move there? Like, obviously getting on the tail end of career, obviously being back home. They didn't have the best of years. What drove you to sort of head up to Brisbane?
I was just the coaching staff just reached out. They needed some senior players up there, and I'm sort of at that stage of my career where I can sort of think I can help the younger kids off the field, whether that be in property or just anything, generally outside football. I think I can give half decent advice. Probably not that good, but I'll do my best. But I'll do my best to try and lead them around and join the players that they've got there. They got Adam Reynolds, Kurt Catewell. Adam Reynolds is a great player. So if I can just add a little bit of value around that, I think we'll do all right.
Is that something you enjoy, Dark? That whole leadership mentor type role, both on and off the field?
Yeah, I think I sort of walked into it from a young age. I started captaining the Titans, I think when I was 24 or 25, and I like to think that I've helped a lot of people along the way, on and off the field, and that's sort of what I try to pride myself on doing, and also try to play some decent footy at times as well.
And I guess that's the big thing, isn't it? And as we're saying, we're not here to chat footy. We all know Dark's Ryan James's career, but a lot of people don't actually know. Like, Ryan's actually quite astute off the field. I remember when I first met Ryan, he was quite aggressive on the field. I was like, I can't stand this guy. Scary. He's got the long hair and that. But, mate, to be honest, he's very astute. And I really wanted to get him on because a lot of people obviously know his sporting career. But one thing I love, as you would know, Ryan and Crossy, is in the footy world, in the sports field, not many diverse themselves away from footy. And one thing I noticed with Ryan, and what I want to get in deep today, is the nitty gritty on the off the field stuff, because he's done quite well from a property sense, which a lot of people don't know about. So we can sort of touch on that sort of stuff today, I reckon.
Absolutely. And I'm always interested, because you're right, like, he has done it from a young age. It's pretty inspiring, and hopefully anyone who's watching and listening takes a fair bit out of today. But mate, I was quite interested to know sort of what the money habits were at home. What were when you were starting out with your mum and dad, etc. Like, was that something that was spoken about? Is it something you picked up at an early age that really invoked a bit of interest?
Yeah, it was. And it's something that my dad always done. Dad went out and worked. Mum was a stay-at-home mum. So he still does, treats money, very respectfully, and really watches what he spends. And I think it has translated to what I've done. And I've been pretty lucky to grow up in a very stable household, and Dad owned his house, I think from when I was a young kid. So we were very lucky that we had a roof over our heads and were able to do that. So, but I think it just sort of translated to how I looked after my money. I don't just go and sort of splurge my money on anything. But I don't know, I do sometimes, but they're always calculated. So if Srama would know I bought an old Mustang, and people were like, why the hell did you buy that? But then I end up selling it for an extra 50 grand more. So they're always calculated, the things that I purchase and buy and sell, and nothing that I buy is not for sale.
Yeah, that's good. Everything's for sale at a price, right?
And that's it. And just on the property front, you've obviously translated that mindset into property. Just give the listeners and viewers a bit of a background into the journey. And one thing I'm big on is obviously there's plenty of mistakes on the way, and the whole purpose of this is obviously to try and help and educate buyers out there before they know. I guess one question I always like to ask first is sort of, is there anything in particular that you learnt early on, you're getting into your first property? Was there anything you'd probably change or a key learning you think? If you could change back time now?
Yeah. I've had a pretty good property journey, to tell you the truth. I haven't lost on anything. And when I started, actually, my first place was just behind here at Miami in Calais Street. I remember I was on contract at the Titans. I had a 3-year contract. I had like a 50 grand deposit, and the house was only 515 grand. And I remember that the bank was not going to give me the loan because I think it was GFC around the time or just after. But my contract was more than what the house was going for at the time. I was just like, why?
Make sense.
I was like, why don't you just give me the money? But I ended up getting it through the first home buyers and stuff like that. And that was my first flip. I stayed in that for a couple of years. I probably put about 60 grand into it, 60, 70 grand. Did a majority.
And what on that? What did that include? The 60, 70?
So when we bought the house, it was sort of dual occupancy. So upstairs, downstairs. downstairs was fully done, so we didn't have to touch that. But upstairs was like an older place, so it wasn't duplex zone, but it was set up like a duplex. So that was one of the things when I bought it. I was like, well, there's a bit of extra income for my first property.
Nice.
I don't have to fully look after the full mortgage. You get some mates in, pay some rent, and then.
So that's a good point. So was that strategic? Because people might just listen and go, oh, you found a place, it was close to beach or whatever, it made a bit of sense, but it's a bit deeper than that, isn't it? Like, it's actually dual income, there's some rent, we can help pay it off. Like, already at a young age, you're showing some really good habits.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, if I had two mates downstairs, paying more than half the mortgage, so I was able to live in it while doing some renos, and upstairs we did the kitchen, we did the floors, we just did a repaint, and then when we eventually came to sell it, we just did some paint on the outside, did the driveways, just did all the things to make it look nice and presentable, and made a pretty good profit out of it. I think I sold it for near 800, and then moved straight into the next house, which was out in Mudgeeraba, which was a really good buy at the time, and I think it was about 720. So sort of people would think I went backwards in the house, but it was sort of before when acreage was popular, I could say. So it was a 700 grand house, but I looked at it and I thought this house would have cost 500 to build. So it was sort of a no-brainer. Got the family out there and did the same thing there. So I didn't really have to do too much to the house because it was only a 4 or 5 year old house. A lot of mates in the building industry as well sort of helped us do a couple of things there. And people always thought I was overcapitalising that place. I spent about 150, 200. So I put a pool, did the whole driveways, did all the fencing. So I was about 900 in total into that, and then ended up selling that for 1.2. So, and then the same thing again. So I've genuinely made a lot of my money through property, through the houses that I've lived in. I've also had investment properties in the block of units and a couple of units that I've owned down in the Kira and Shugan area. But a lot of the bulk money that I've made off my investments have been through the ones I've lived in and sold.
And so what I'm hearing there, Ryan, is more appealing to a lot of owner-occupied market, because I'm noticing in the market now, the owner-occupier renovations are doing really well. So there's obviously a lot of buyers out there, and this is one thing I always learn in property is you got to appeal to the masses to make good capital gains, and if you can appeal to owner-occupiers, they're the ones who are obviously emotionally attached to a property and whatnot. So just a lot of them I heard you say around you dipped a bit of money with renovation. Are we talking cosmetic? Were you knocking out walls, or like what sort of scope of renos were these? And who did you utilise? Like, did you have mates, or were you on the tools yourself, or did you outsource everything?
Yeah, Dad was a builder for 30 years, so
Awesome.
I like to think I'm half handy, and whenever I could use family and friends. And when it came to sort of things that had to be approved, like if you're waterproofers and stuff like that, you'd get someone in to do that. So try and do most things at a low cost to myself, and utilise sponsors of the clubs and everything around that to maximise your profit, I guess. And I was always pretty smart, but the missus probably hated me because we're always living in a construction site. But it ended up paying off because everyone's end goal is to, I guess, own their house outright and, live in it. And what I'm doing now, I live out on a couple acres. I got my mum and dad on the same property, and, close to paying it off with, sort of the process I've followed over time. But, there's still plenty of other places I've made money off, like the block of units in Shugan. I thought that was a great buy at the time. And again, it was I think it was 3 2-bedroom units, and it was in Kitchener Street, and I think it was about 815, and there was 3 2-bedders. Downstairs was a 2-bedder,
Split level, so a split level.
Yeah, so it was 2-story, and then downstairs there was a 4-car garage, so double behind driving, but ended up knocking out behind the downstairs 2-bedder and extending that to a 4-bedroom. But that was another thing where I learnt through council that you had to have a certain amount of car parks for rooms in a unit block. So ended up being 2 2-bedders, a 3-bedder plus a study. So it wasn't technically a bedroom, but it kind of was, but it wasn't, but it was.
Just on that, Ryan, can you dive a little deeper into that, like the complexity of that? So did council halt it up a little bit, did they?
Yeah, it was just when I went to the town planner. So once we took out the 4 car parks, there was only 2 available. Then we had to have another 2 out the front and with access to the 2 in the driveway. So I think I can't really remember exactly. It's a medium density down there. And I think it was every bedroom had to be point eight of a car spot or something like that.
Yep.
But we had to have 4 car parks and a visitor. So, which didn't allow us to say it was an extra bedroom, which made it be a study. But, you know, once everyone sees the plans of the house, they realise that that's a 4-bedroom place. But, you know, technically it's not. But, yeah, that was a pretty good profit out of it. I think I bought it for 8 and sold it for 1.25. But I was lucky enough I bought that in a property trust, and mum and dad are retired now, and I wasn't working at the time, so I was able to, you know, divvy out the gains through the trust, and you know, maximise my profits there as well.
So when you bought that, was that on one title, or was that a strata titled block of units, as in 3 separate units you could sell individually, or if it was one title, did you ever think about trying to get them strata title?
Yeah, it was on one title, and it had everything set up to be, you know, split. So it had all the separate boxes. Had the middle one was double brick fireproof wall. It was just at the time. So I signed with Canberra, and we sort of decided at the time that my brother, he looked after the place. So he lived in the 4-bedroom place. He did all the lawns. I didn't have to pay anyone for maintenance. Sort of kept costs down at that end, and he got a little bit cheaper rent, but he looked after the place. And we could have went through the whole process of doing that, and it would have been a couple of months, but then I didn't want to really rent the place I was going to live in forever to just anyone, so I had my family move into it. I thought at the time, it was the start of COVID, I think we didn't know if the market was going to boom or not. The market was actually travelling upwards, so we thought we may as well hop on it while it was hot, and got a pretty good little profit out of that. Same thing there, one of the places was pretty nice, we just hit it with a bit of paint. One of them was a full, sort of, not a full reno, but it was, we did the kitchen, just painted it and left the bathroom. And then downstairs, Daryl Madge, who works at the Titans, me and him ripped into that for a couple of months and turned that into a 4-bedder. So, again, utilised my mates. I probably spent 100 on that place. So I think probably would have walked out of it with, 300 plus.
Spent 100, picked up an extra 3. Obviously, market's moving as well, but you've significantly added value. It's interesting, isn't it? Like Shrams, as Ryan just said, then like that whole the whole psychology around buying when COVID sort of hit, wasn't that interesting? Like you think about, people were talking about 30 to 40% decreases in property prices Australia wide. What's going to happen? Everyone's losing their jobs, people jumping out of property. But as we all know, it's just gone the other way at a rate of knots. Is that something like that? Have you looked at it last year? You know, obviously you're on contract and there's some stability there, but have you looked at that last year, mate, and seen the market rising and thinking, you know, I'm getting towards the end of my good money now. Should I be buying more? Not just my own home. Should I actually look into multiply and do some other stuff as well? Yeah,
100%. And so yeah, my goal for the next, I want to play 200 games of first grade. So that entails another 2 years of footy. And not many people probably know, but when you play rugby league, you get a retirement fund. So every year you play first grade. I think when I first started, it was $3,000, and it gradually worked its way up to $12,000 a year. So once you retire, you'll get this lump sum. Mine might be around 120, 130 grand at the moment, something like that. But I just wanted to make sure I owned my place outright, and at the moment, I'm probably 6 months off that. I'm looking at we bought 3 acres out at Benogan, and we're in the middle of splitting the block into 2, and then I'll sell it back half to my brother because, you know, why not have everyone at the one place? I love having my family around.
So
good. We can look after each other. He'll probably get it for a little bit mates rates, but at the end I'll own my house, and then I'll probably have a little bit of money left over to then try and create some passive income through some property. And I think that's the first time in my property journey where I'll look to make passive income from it, through owning my own property. I've sort of got in my mind that I'll use my retirement fund. I'll use half of my retirement fund plus whatever I sell potentially to back block for, to hopefully get 1, 2, maybe 3 investment properties to bring me in some income, so I don't have to really stress too much when I retire.
Yeah, good.
So have them as sort of like little trickling taps, as the people use the analogy with investment properties, you know, that passive income. And one thing I'm hearing there, Ryan, is you're very utilising capital each time, and putting it to something else is probably one thing I'm hearing a trend, because I notice with a lot of people, they'll they'll do something once and then they'll either blow that capital or you know what I mean, they won't put it to something that's going to leverage them more. So I mean, just thinking of your journey then from the first one you said you bought in Miami, each one you've utilized the capital but put it into another opportunity. So I think that's a huge lesson out there to anyone listening, Ryan, especially being, you know, quite young, is whenever you get a bit of capital surplus, you've got to put it to use, I guess.
Invest it.
Be
disciplined.
Be disciplined. Yeah, now on that, just what's it like? Obviously, you've got a family in that now. So I remember when you first started your property journey, you didn't really have kids or anything. So how does that change? Obviously, people listening, some kids, some not. How does that change the household disposable income piece?
Yeah, it obviously changes a fair bit. Played most of my NRL career where Anna worked at the start of it, and then once we had kids, it was more affordable for her to be at home, look after the kids and do all the housework, and now we're toward the end, she's gone back to work. So, you know, your money spending sort of has to come in and you sort of have to be a little bit tighter. But as I said before, I like to think that all my purchases are sort of pretty calculated. So, you know, one of my what I'd like to call my splurges was the Mustang that I bought, which was $100,000. So people are like, why the hell is this guy buying $100,000 car? And then literally, I think it was 18 months later, I sold it for $150,000, then chucked it straight back onto my house. So as I said, I bought an old GMC probably a week ago. I'll probably do the same. I'll make
classic car.
Yeah, make it a little bit nicer. We've got the shed at the property. We can do all the stuff at home, drive it around for a year, sell it, have the money, put it in something else. It's just I seen a nice thing. It was I don't think there's a good time to sell. It's just a time, and whenever you sell it, and you have to capitalize at that time. You can't sort of, you know, probably be selling now, and if you wait 6 months, you might be priced out. So I'm always sort of buying and selling in a pretty close time frame. And with all my properties, I was lucky enough to, you know, get your house revalued, have the capital there, buy the house, and then not have to worry to sell the house to buy the house. So all the ones I've done that with in my principal properties, I've done that.
That's an interesting point he just made there, Shrams, around using equity to actually go and buy your next one before cashing out of your current one. Because what we're seeing at the moment is, Matty, you know way better than me, but it's a pretty dangerous game people are playing at the moment, particularly in the market. You know, you're very much niche Southern End, Gold Coast, etc., but of course covering the whole Gold Coast. But the people of selling, nowhere to go, cashing out, money in their pocket, high-fiving each other, we're going to rent for 6 months, and then the market's kicked. You know, you look at some areas, like we're down that Palm Beach area, and places have gone up $600,000-$700,000 in 12 months, and people are thinking that, you know, I'm just going to put the money in my pocket and sell. Whereas Ryan's saying, you know, I know what the value is now. I get a valuation. I know what my loan to value ratio is. I know I've got equity. I'm going to go and use that equity, get into this one, and then get settled and sell there. Very, very smart. I mean, you're seeing it on the ground, mate, as far as people selling and then being desperate trying to get in. It's interesting, right?
I think it just leads people to buy what they didn't want in the first place. So the house I'm in now is my forever house. And so the second last house I had was my Mudgebar place. I think it was down to 400 at the time. The bank valued it at 1.1. So we took some equity out. Found a place in Benogue, and it was 1.3 at the time, and it was beautiful acreage property, granny flat, 3 acres. We ended up getting that for 1.3. So when you look at it, I got an extra house, an extra 2 acres for an extra $100,000. I was like, I'd be stupid if I didn't buy it.
Yeah.
And then, as again I said, I'm probably 200 into that now. So we end up putting a big industrial shed at the back, big swimming pool, fenced the whole thing, looking at splitting the block. But yeah, it's probably 3+ now. So I've been, I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm not lucky that I did sort of create my own luck, but I always, as Srama would know, I always looked at the real estate. We grew up on property, so I was always looking to move to property. So we started in here. We worked in Mudgebar, 1 acre wasn't enough for the family. 3 acres, get the whole family out there, and we'll be sweet.
When you were doing that, did you feel at any time that what you were doing was a little bit risky? Because, you know, people talk about risk in property, and we both big believers, Matty and I, around, you know, it's risky not to be doing it because what's the end game? So for you, at any point along your journey, were you thinking, geez, I'm taking a bit of a punt here?
No, not really. Just because, as I said, I always got my places revalued and had the money there to go and do it. And I knew bank values are 10% less, even more nowadays. You're going to be able to get that money back. And then, my house journey sort of started with a modest, pretty nice, and then I'd like to think my house is pretty nice now. So I sort of just kept upgrading and upgrading to get to what I wanted. And I don't think at any stage I sort of didn't want any of the houses I wanted. So I was sort of just dabbling into that investment market, which I've done pretty well at, and a couple that I've owned. And there's a lot of wish I'd buys. I remember there was this place down in Benora Point. It was at a time where I had the money. I ended up buying a unit in Kirra. So the unit in Kirra was $275, and it was in Lord Street, right near the beach. But there was a house for sale in Benora Point, just off Sexton's Hill, and I think it ended up selling for $285 for a house, a house.
Yeah.
So you own the land, you own everything. The money's in the land. You can't even buy a house now in Benora for under $600, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
hindsight's good.
Yeah.
I wish I held on to the Tugan units for another 6 months, but as I said, relative to the time where I was buying and selling, all the money was good at those times, so I ended up taking a lot of them.
One thing on that I'm noticing as well, not just Ryan, but a lot of people I've worked with as well in my job now, is people who have done really well. I noticed there's a common theme, and it's they take action. Big one. I've spoken to a few people about it. Obviously been fortunate to work with like CEOs and investors and athletes and different people. And what I find the common trait with a lot of them is they don't overanalyze it. They sort of risk mitigation. If it makes sense, you just have a crack. Just have a crack and then come off the back end. And hindsight's right. We'd all wish we purchased a few more in certain locations years ago. But hey, at least you did something. There's people out there who haven't done a thing, and they're still analysing.
Yeah.
Analysis paralysis, they call it.
Correct.
So I commend Ryan and a lot of people, and I find the trait that really gets people from A to B quickly, and Ryan's getting from A to B to C, where he wants to be, is each one, hindsight's beautiful, but he's at least taken action. He's had a crack.
That's right. And they tend to find a way. They
Just
come up
find a
against
way.
hurdles, and I don't know with Dark's story at times if like you said with the finance with the start, you're thinking I'm making more than what this place is worth, and there's still issues with the bank. But action's the first thing, and then actually finding a way and not putting it in the too hard basket, because then you live with those regrets, right? You look at it and you go, man, that place has gone up $200,000 in a year or whatever, all because I couldn't get an extra few forms through to the bank, or I couldn't ask my employer to please write me this letter. You know what I mean? So it is a big takeaway.
Has there been any big? Has there been any? What's one or two hurdles that you sort of really pushed through? You feel in your property sort of journey?
Probably, I think just getting
finance.
getting into the market. It was such a hard time to get into the market, and to have all the security, and they were saying you're a footballer, so you might get injured, you might not have this money. But the hardest hurdle at the start was getting into the market, and I found once I was in the market, it sort of just became easier. And sort of the next purchases that happened sort of just became easier over time. And one of the things when I first started is I didn't get too attached to any of the houses I really didn't want to be in for a long time. So my wife really liked my last house, but I didn't tell her that I was going to sell it, and I just had the real estate there one day.
The agent's got his folder. Not gonna. Hey, Ryan, I'm here to.
Literally, she showed up, and there was an agent with a folder ready to sell it, and then I'd already bought the next place, and she didn't want to move into it till the fences were up, because we had a couple of dogs at the time, so I ended up putting about 300 or 400 meters of fence up so the dogs couldn't get out, just so she could live out there. But I dare say it was the finance part, and I dare say it's a lot harder now. But I'm just lucky I've got the equity behind me now, where if I wanted to do something and pull the trigger, I probably could.
Yeah, awesome. Mate, I suppose as we probably look to wrap up, it's been really good having a chat. One thing Tram said before, which I thought about, is in and around, he mentioned, the kids, and I always think about, what's the end game? What's the legacy piece? You spoke about your family and your brother and all that. Look, mate, it's outstanding what you're doing. I mean, if anyone's got the opportunity to do that, and they go actually and take action like Srams is saying, and they do it, mate, it's a great legacy piece. But what about the boys, mate? The young boys you've got, the family. We know property prices are getting ridiculous. I think about my own 2 kids, how are they going to get in? Is that something you've thought about now? Or I know they're very young, but have you given that any thought around legacy for the boys?
Yeah, I have, and that's why I bought out there, and that's why we're looking at doing the block split at the moment, because I've got 2 other brothers that I want to help out as well, and I'm fortunate enough I'm in a position that I can probably help them out at some capacity. We're looking at trying to get one of them up there, and then I'd go guarantor or try and help the other brother in something else. But when it comes to my kids, that's why I'm looking at hopefully a couple of investments with the retirement fund and with the surplus from the sale of the back block, and they'll look at probably going towards helping them with their first property purchase, and hopefully instill some good values in them that will help them on their property journey when they get to it. But I'm hoping that they'll be able to have one each once it comes to that time, and be able to walk into a property.
How amazing, to be able to do that. And again, like as parents, you don't want to hand everything to your kids on a platter. You wanted to show like hard work pays off, but to give them that chance, and even if it's not just handing it to them, it's the learnings along the way, like you had with your parents, to show that hard work does pay off, and if you take action, you can get in and here's something for you. I mean, it's a great opportunity, and I think it's a great lesson for anyone out there who's trying to better themselves as a person, get ahead in life, but also think about their kids as well.
Yeah.
100%. I reckon the take action thing, I haven't even thought about that, but yeah, it's something I've always done, and I've always thought in my head that if I think about something for too long, I usually just don't do it. So
Took yourself out.
You talk yourself out of it. You're like, there's too many pros, too many cons. You're just like, I'll just sit back on this one. You're like, why didn't I do that? So yeah, you just gotta pull the trigger.
That's it. That's it. I heard this one. It's the 70-30 rule. Get the 70%, and you'll figure out the 30% later. just jump in.
Just jump in.
You'll figure it out.
It was literally the same as I bought that truck last week. It was cheap enough where I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to lose money on it. I called my brother, was working up the back in the shed. I was like, Brad, we're seeing this truck at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
We drove up. I went, yeah, what do you reckon? He said, yeah, sweet. I said, we're going to lose money. He goes, no, we'll probably make money. So I went, yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Sold.
Yeah. Take action. Yeah. That's it. Mate, before we get on to our property prequel fast 5, mate, I just want to obviously acknowledge you, Ryan. Obviously, being a young guy is probably, still relatively young. It's funny when you talk an athlete world, you're
young.
It's weird, isn't it? Relatively young in a property sense for sure, but from an athlete side, obviously very experienced now. But I guess you're really inspiring not only a lot of people in the athlete world and the league world, but also just younger generation as well. I think your story's good, and hopefully people get a lot out of this, because you're someone who's just having a crack, taking action, and you've got that legacy piece around the family and whatnot. So, on debut, man, we just want to say thanks for popping in.
Oh, thanks for having us, Doc. There's no right or wrong way, I don't think. I've just sort of done it my way. The people like investments, and I just like living them and selling them. I always thought not paying any capital gains was the best way I'd make money, and that's sort of how I'd done it in the short period that you make money as an athlete. So that's what I did.
Mate, it's epic. And the prequel Fast 5. So, Ryan, quick one. On the spot, we've made this up.
Come up with some absolute clangers here. Here we go.
So, just first thing that comes to mind with these 5, all right? COVID's not an issue. Money's not an issue. All right? You can go anywhere in the world, any dwelling type. So, it can be anything. I'll ask you, firstly, where's the holiday home? Where's the holiday? This is relaxed time.
Oh, we're going to Mykonos, Greece.
Mykonos? What, a villa or like a...
Nah, house on the water.
On the cliff face or something?
Oh, probably beachfront.
Beach.
You want to be able to go out and have a swim.
Yeah. Just flat walk.
Flat
This is a Greek heritage. You went there a couple of years ago. It's beautiful out there.
Okay, Mykonos. All right, next one is, again, no budget anywhere in the world. Blue chip investment. This is going to be your money pit. Where are you putting that money, you reckon?
Surely a big block of units or something down in Sydney.
Oh, I like it. What, any suburb
Actually,
in particular?
probably here. I said the Gold Coast is the highest rental now in Australia. It was like median price was $750 or something for a house, and I was just like, maybe here on the Gold Coast down in Jefferson.
Yeah, so beach again.
Beach. Somewhere always close to the beach, you always seem to get more rent.
family, wind down home. This is where the kids will grow old. Ryan's going to grow old with the red wine.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Benogan.
Yeah.
I am now. Yeah.
Nice. What do you like about Benogan?
I just liked having
Quiet.
the area, and I don't know if it was through pure luck, but it's seemed to double in price in the last year. I don't know if it was due to COVID, but there seems to be more people moving from your Melbournes and your Sydneys moving out to Benogan, and property prices seem to be soaring.
All right, the boys from your footy career, they've all said, Ryan, we're having a party. Where's the party at? Where are we getting loose? Where's it at?
Are we going to Vegas again?
I don't know. Are we?
It's been a long time.
Where's that one?
Vegas was all right.
Vegas?
Yeah.
What, a unit? Penthouse? House?
Oh, yeah. You'd almost want it to be, Wolf of Wall Street style.
Yeah.
But obviously not that bad.
Yeah. All right, Vegas. And then lastly, mate, just a piece of advice for property buyers out there. If Ryan James left the universe tomorrow and he could leave one piece of advice just for property buyers out there, what would that be in a few short words?
Oh, I think if you want it and you really think you want it in your head and you've got the capability to get it, that's not too outside of where you want to be, pull the trigger and do it. She'll be right. You'll figure it out after that.
Love it.
Ryan James, thanks for the debut. Well done, mate.
Cheers, Docs.
Thanks, Doc.